everyone, and welcome back to my channel. And I hope that your writing ideas are starting to come into play. Maybe you've done some sketches, maybe you have gotten yourself a basic outline going, which is awesome. That's wonderful. Good job, people. Today, what I want to talk about is research. And before you hit click and say, nah, not for me, there's so many different types of things that you need to research. And you may even ask yourself, but I'm writing fiction. Why do I need to research? Well, here's why. If you're doing realistic fiction or historical fiction, and you don't know the ins and outs of the castle that you are basing your story off of, you're going to look really silly. And your editor is going to be like, pass. You don't even know what you're talking about. So you don't want that. So historical fiction, you want to make sure that you're up on all of the ins and outs of the time period that you're writing about. And if you're doing realistic fiction and you're throwing in something about, maybe somebody has a diabetic condition, or maybe they have a rheumatoid arthritis condition, you want to make sure that if you have never experienced those things for yourself, that you do your research. Okay? You do not want to insult your reader by having a faulty fact, or maybe somebody didn't post the right thing up on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is great for many, many things, but if you're going to rely on that as your only source, I'd say that's probably not the best idea. You always want backup information to back up your information. But what if you're doing sci-fi writing? Well, if your story takes place in outer space and you have your characters doing repairs on your spacecraft, you want to make sure that you at least understand the laws of physics that go on out there when you're doing a spacewalk. If you are investigating crime on an alien planet, well, if it's a planet that is not an actual planet in the solar system, you still need to base it off of the real world thing. So maybe the planet is similar to, say, Jupiter. You'd want to do some research about what might that look like if you had life on Jupiter. How would that work? The big thing is you want to ask questions. Asking questions about your world and about your characters and their motivation, that's going to help drive a lot of your research. Now, for example, with my story, Nibble Nibble, even though it's based off of a fairy tale, I still have some rules and guidelines to follow therein. Since I'm using Germanic names like Hansel and Gretel, I need to know a little bit about the environment. Like, let's say, the Black Forest, especially when my character Hilda gets set into exile and she's living literally in a cabin in the woods. How does that work? How would you be able to survive? Not only in the modern time, but how would somebody be expected to survive with very few outdoor skills in the middle of this forested setting? What could you eat? One of the things that I had to kind of work around was my character Hilda comes into the forest in the middle of autumn. It really doesn't give her a whole lot of time to get things together for a long cold winter. So I had to look up, are there edible plants that you can find in the fall and the winter that would work? Turns out, yes, there were. I found a really interesting little guidebook about flora and fauna in Northern and Eastern European settings, and that really helped me out a lot. For example, they wouldn't necessarily say blueberries, they would say bilberries. So I wanted to make sure that when I wrote about it, I didn't use the word blueberries. I would say bilberries, because that's what they would have called it. Also, you want to take into account your time period. You want to make sure that if your story took place in the 1980s, would your character have a Walkman? Would your character have made mixtapes off of the radio? What would you expect from that character? considering that CD players were pretty darn expensive back then, and there weren't as many CDs as there were records and cassette tapes. There's some more examples here. So asking questions is a great way to start. Another question that I had was my antagonist, the princess that becomes queen, Bathilda. She has all these allergies. I wanted to make sure that I respected the people who really do have gluten intolerance, gluten allergies, and other types of things. Lactose. I'm lactose intolerant, but mine is considered somewhat mild compared to others. So I did some research and went to like WebMD, and I went to Healthline, and I went to different sites that had, what symptoms you would expect, what kind of foods do they tell you to avoid, or what foods do you feel that you could have if you had those conditions. Then I also had to think about, well, when does the story take place? It takes place in the 1800s-ish. Kept my timeline fairly general. About the time when the Grimm brothers, wrote down the story. Then it made me think, could they make almond milk back then? Did they have access to almonds? Do they have access to soybeans? So I had to do some historical research, which always started with, Googling it and then looking at the different web pages that it sent me to, which thank God we live in the age of Google because it makes it so much easier. All I ask is that you vet yourself before you wreck yourself, okay? You want to make sure that whatever sites you use, you have other websites that back up and give similar information. Because then you're less likely to get called out on, hey, there's no way they could have had a vegan lifestyle in the 1800s in Europe and have that work. That's not possible. Well, actually, it is possible. You could do that, but there are different ways you would have to make that function. It's not like they had food processors to make your cauliflower red. And I did find out you can make almond milk. There were pandemic recipes on how to make your own homemade almond milk, and it jived with things that Hilda would probably have utensil-wise in the castle to make almond milk for the queen. So, all sorts of things like that. I mean, I didn't realize how much research I was going to have to do until I started writing the parts about going into the woods or, dietary restrictions. Sometimes you can anticipate it if if you're looking at your outline and you say, hey, this might be something that I need to look up. Other times, you'll just be going on your flow, and then you come to a screeching halt and be like, wait a second, did they have this type of grain in this region of the world? Where would they get it from? How would they get it? What would be the way of preparation for that? So, yeah, research, while it may seem like a pain, it's going to help you out in the long run. So, I hope that these tips and suggestions and my ranting's been able to help you guys out. Or if you have other questions, please feel free to put it in the comments below. Now, if you like this video, if you like seeing my lovely talking head, then please put a like and a subscribe to see more videos. Hit that notification bell so you know when it comes up. And I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.